Hey everyone, Bruce Eckfeldt here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so we can let you know when the next video is posted. You can also check us out at eckfeldt.com for more great content. With that, let's go check out the video.
Are you a CEO looking to scale your company faster and easier? Check out Thrive Roundtable. Thrive combines a moderated peer group mastermind, expert one-on-one coaching, access to proven growth tools, and a 24/7 support community. Created by Inc. award-winning CEO and certified scaling up business coach Bruce Eckfeldt, Thrive will help you grow your business more quickly and with less drama. For details on the program, visit eckfeldt.com/thrive. That's eckfeldt.com/thrive.
You're listening to Thinking Outside the Bud, where we speak with entrepreneurs, investors, thought leaders, researchers, advocates, and policymakers who are finding new and exciting ways for cannabis to positively impact business, society, and culture. And now, here is your host, business coach, Bruce Eckfeldt.
Welcome everyone, this is Thinking Outside the Bud. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt, I'm your host. And our guest today is Jessie Gill. And Jessie is a registered nurse in the cannabis space. We're going to learn a little bit about her background. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this aspect of the cannabis space as a healing medical tool. And I'm excited to learn about that and learn about the story. So Jessie, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Bruce. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's hear about the story. How did you get into the cannabis space? I'm curious to hear the journey you've had, and then we can talk a little bit about Marijuana Mommy and what you're doing with your project now.
Well, it has been a very, very interesting, crazy journey. I never expected to be a cannabis nurse or to be in this space at all.
Yeah.
I am a former hospice nurse, and in January of 2014, I was injured in a weird, bizarre work accident. And, my life instantaneously changed. Yeah. And I suffered a cervical spinal injury and a great deal of nerve damage. And I started this, process through the traditional healthcare system to just try to get better, to try to restore my wellness. Yeah. And, I did everything that they told me to do, took all the medications, went to all the appointments. Nothing helped. Eventually I had a multi-level spinal fusion, and that actually made me worse. So I lost the ability to drive, the range of motion decreased, I developed swallowing issues, and, I was living, they kind of wrote me off. They said that's it, that's all they could do, that I would nenever get any better. And I was living life completely dependent on medications, opiates and Valium around the clock, plus a whole bunch of other meds. And, at this time, I was still trying every other option out there. And then, somebody suggested cannabis, and I was like, that's ridiculous. I am a hospice nurse. I am a pain expert. I treat other people's pain. If morphine's not helping me, marijuana's not going to do anything. Yeah. And, I wrote it off. I was a little annoyed. And my mother was like, you've tried everything else. And my mom's also a nurse. She's like, you're trying flotation therapy. You're trying all these supplements. Why wouldn't you try this?
Exactly.
So I was like, okay, she took me, my parents took me, they got me cannabis, and it was amazing. It was that exact same day I was able to stop the opiates and the Valium and replace that completely with cannabis. Wow. And then slowly I was able to get off of the other medications. Yeah. So it's just transformed my life. And I'm not better. I still have tons of limitations. I still can't drive. I still have, deal with chronic pain. Yeah. But my quality of life has skyrocketed and dramatically improved. That's how I got started.
So that was 2014, 2015. It sounds like you were kind of going through that part.
Yeah, so I've been a cannabis patient for 3 years. And this past November, it was my 3-year canniversary. I had a lengthy battle with pharmaceuticals before switching over to cannabis. But now I'm off of everything. It's been really, really remarkable.
That's great. Good for you.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, actually, I similarly had fused L4, L5, S1 through, I had an injury, kind of somewhat of a freak fracture of my L5. So. Wow. And it was kind of similar thing. opioids I did not like at all. And I was constantly searching everything from turmeric teas to all sorts of physical therapies and things like that. But, certainly cannabis was very, very helpful in helping with recovery and getting me back. And I've had more or less a complete recovery. But so I get
that's amazing.
I get a piece of it. I get a piece of what you've been going through.
That's fantastic.
So, and it's fascinating because I hear a lot of stories of these sort of people who, would not have guessed, 1,000 times that they would have been a cannabis user, but have gone through some kind of situation, some kind of event.
Funny, I'm not completely cannabis naive. Like I had gone through a period where I used it regularly, in my younger years. And like I had a lot of negative associations to it. And, in retrospect, I'm 100% sure that I was self-medicating at the time. But, it's funny, like when I stopped taking cannabis, I switched to Xanax. Like I literally went to my doctor and I wasn't going to use cannabis anymore. And I'm like, I need something for my anxiety, for my nightmares. And, I took it right up until, I eventually went to Valium and then back to cannabis. But it's wild how it happens.
Well, that's fascinating just with this, the way that it's, obviously kind of getting legalized, but also it's getting into kind of more and more different sort of parts of the culture and different types of people are using it and dealing with that kind of stigma, the kind of historical pot culture, seeing that kind of transition into these different segments that are now adopting cannabis use in different ways. So tell us a little bit about how so you've had this experience, this personal experience. What are you doing how are you extending that? And what are your goals or your missions around helping other people's with their journey?
Sure. So, at the time I was already writing and blogging about health and a lot of family health. So it just kind of naturally transitioned into sharing my story about cannabis and then discussing the research. I'm totally a science geek. I love research. I love science. That's my passion. So I just incorporated a lot of that into Marijuana Mommy. And Marijuana Mommy is a website that's designed to teach patients and potential patients how and why to use cannabis. So we share a lot of things like, of course, all the informational and medical benefits, but I also do things like products that are really transforming patients' lives and making the medication, easier, or recipes, or, how to extract cannabis oil at home, all of those things. And it's done in a very stigma-free, this is what it is and this is okay kind of attitude. So it's very, very relatable to a specific niche group of people who are looking for answers, not only answers, but also comfort.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the segment, or who is your audience, or who do you really want to speak most directly to in terms of the website and the content that you're developing? Who do you most resonate with?
Most definitely patients. And it's funny because, when I started out, I expected it to be more female focused, but it really, really hasn't been. It definitely appeals to women and parents, because that's so relatable, that aspect of me. But it's really, I think, just being a registered nurse and teaching openly and honestly with personal experience, that really, really resonates with a lot of people who are really just starting to explore this plant as a possible medicine. And a lot of people who are interested in, okay, well, let me just start with a little CBD. And, then they kind of get their toes wet and then eventually dive right in.
Yeah. And what do you think are some of the challenging things? It certainly, as this market kind of expands and more people, become interested in it and wanting to try it, it is tough. It's tough to get involved. It's very confusing, both from a knowledge point of view, kind of the science point of view, but also the cultural point of view. Where do I buy it? How do I buy it? What am I buying? How often do I take it? Things like that. What do you think? Sort of guide me through a little bit some of the things that you suggest to people who are curious and, they've got their toes by the edge of the water and they're thinking about, dipping them in, but what do you suggest they do?
So, of course, it all depends on the state. I'm always big on, respecting the laws. I can provide a lot of direction for, New Jersey. But, it really, really depends on the state of whether people have access and how, easy or affordable it is to access that medication. CBD is so much easier. CBD, almost everybody can purchase online. Of course, I offer a lot of product guidance because there's a ton of junk on the market, but there are some amazing, excellent brands out there and even some incredible craft brands. I think dosage guidelines is something a lot of people need to pay more attention to. So I do offer things like that in my classes and and on my site.
Talk to us a little bit about the CBD THC approach. I mean, because the CBD stuff has been big, I would say, in the last 12 months, maybe 18 months, but it's really kind of taking off. How do you help people understand kind of these big categories of types of cannabis products and how to kind of navigate them?
Sure. CBD, the biggest difference between like a CBD-based product and then full spectrum medical marijuana is just the THC content. Yeah. It's just how much THC has. And the appeal of the CBD is that it's non-intoxicating. And you'll hear a lot of people say it's not psychoactive. It is psychoactive, but people are just confused about what that means. It's psychoactive because it can help relieve anxiety. It can help affect your mood. It doesn't make you feel funny like THC does. Yeah. So, a lot of people are just so scared of THC. They're so scared. I don't want to get high, you know, and the CBD is a great way to kind of introduce that. Then it's cannabis. People don't want to call it cannabis. They want to call it hemp, but it's the same plant. The only difference is really the percentage of THC. So a CBD product has 0.3% THC or less. And it can be legally considered industrial hemp. Yeah.
And I think the labeling and the classifications are still kind of getting worked out, but I think that's
there's no regulation or structure whatsoever.
One of the big downsides of actually not having it federally legal is that we don't have good controls around it.
That's absolutely the truth. Yeah. So there's a lot of junk on the market, unfortunately, a lot of pesticides.
Well, so I was just going to ask, so when you're kind of looking for these products and you're, doing, research online or looking at products online, what are some of the big things you suggest people look at in terms of, selecting a product or what to look for in a quality product?
Testing is super important. You want to be sure that your products your brands are doing batch testing of, every batch of product. And, you want looking at, not only the potency that they're promising, but you also want to look at, pesticides and heavy metals, anything like that.
Yeah. So making sure that it's free of
everything bad.
Yeah, exactly. And any sense of usage? I mean, say, if people are actually going to start taking some of these things, how do you advise people kind of start with some of this stuff? Because I think that's always a big issue. Some people seem to be super sensitive, some people not sensitive at all. So one person's initial dose may be someone else's unpleasant experience. How do you advise people?
So, with CBD and THC, it's a little different. With CBD, you don't get that, with THC, too much THC can cause a panic attack. It's going to cause, overconsumption issues. You don't get that with CBD. Okay. Like we can go up to really, really high doses of CBD. It's going to, cause sedation, fatigue. THC, you definitely need to use more caution than CBD. For CBD, I usually go with the Realm of Caring has excellent dosage guidelines, and they recommend 25 milligrams twice a day to start. Like if somebody's trying clinically to utilize CBD oil for a clinical purpose. Okay. Now, like you said, everybody is so individualized. So some people will do great with that 25 milligrams twice a day. Some people, like personally, I take over 300 milligrams twice a day. Yeah. But when you really look at, a lot of the doses we have currently on the market are pretty conservative. Yeah. And they tend to be around, 25 milligrams, sometimes even less. But if you really look at the research really shows like 600 to 800 milligram doses. So we know we can go up high. Of course, it's expensive. So people should really use the lowest dose that they can to get the most benefits. Yeah. But it's really about trial and error, just trying it, seeing what works for you, increasing or decreasing based off of your feelings.
Yeah. It's good advice. I think it's, helping people kind of enter the space, I think is one of the biggest challenges we have as the industry.
I 100% agree. It's one of my greatest challenges in what I'm doing because I'm trying to reach potential patients. And, this industry, you can't advertise anything. So except on like cannabis related areas. And I'm like, that's not totally my market. Yeah. So it's frustrating.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I think this was, understanding the different aspects of cannabis, different products and usage and things. But I'd love to hear a little bit about your journey, actually creating your products or selecting your products, creating your content. What has been, I guess let's start with what's been the most interesting part of all this for you as you've kind of gotten into it from a business person, like as you've created things. What has been the most fun or most engaging for you as you've gotten into this?
Doing classes, teaching at events. I'm doing a lot of like grassroots and going out there and running CBD classes and introduction to cannabis classes. And I'm like going into like healthcare providers and doctors' offices and chiropractors and pharmacies and being like, look, I have a class in your area. It's free. Come. And I'm getting like such an amazing response, especially from like the healthcare field. It's really, really cool. And, a lot of that's probably like related credit to our New Jersey, our health commissioner has just been awesome with his education and his tapping into the healthcare professionals and trying to get them on board with CBD and cannabis. So it's really cool to be getting that positive response. But I love impacting other people's lives and I love easing suffering. And that's what I really was passionate about in hospice. And to lose that, was really, really devastating. And now, through Marijuana Mommy and through my classes, I'm finally like reaching patients again and I'm easing suffering again. And I'm doing it on a much more massive scale. So that's really, really been, incredibly rewarding for me.
So these classes, so you're getting healthcare providers coming in, learning about how to integrate cannabis products into their treating or helping of their patients.
Not exactly. That's not the goal of my classes, but it may go that way because I'm getting so much interest. So I'm really targeting potential patients.
Patients themselves. Okay.
So I'm going into these classes and I'm saying, look, you probably have patients that would potentially benefit from learning about this. I'm a nurse. I'm teaching a free class. Send them over. But I am getting a lot of, physicians and nurses and pharmacists who are coming.
I'm curious because I think one of the things that I've noticed that I think it's a bit of a challenge or it's a bit of a paradox of our situation because, doctors and nurses aren't really kind of prescribing cannabis. They're sort of authorizing the use of cannabis, but it's really up to the patient to kind of go and find their own prescription or dial in their own kind of thing. And so they end up kind of lost in this. How have you seen healthcare professionals kind of approach that, that issue? Or how do you see that playing out, I guess?
That's a good question because you're right. And most of the healthcare providers who are recommending cannabis have a very, very limited knowledge of it. And they really can't coach or guide. A lot of them rely on the bud tenders to recommend strains and, they just kind of direct people to outside resources, which is exactly like one of the things Marijuana Mommy is for.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it is a certain gap in the process. I mean, like that, it's
big gap.
How to connect the actual sort of diagnosis side of the equation with the actual treatment and the
right now patients are relying primarily on the community to educate them. So Facebook group messages, Facebook groups, stuff like that. That's where people are getting their most valuable information.
Yeah, good. So you're doing in-person classes. Who's showing up to your in-person classes? Like, what are you noticing about the people that come? Where are they? Are they users already? Are they just thinking about it? Are they curious?
Most of the people, I get a lot of people who will know me from the industry and will come, just to get more information about CBD specifically or whatever the topic is. But primarily it's people who have heard about it, who have thought about it, who are scared of trying it and want to know more. And, but usually they're ready to start. They just need that little bit of extra encouragement. And, like you've already mentioned, doctors and nurses, they don't really know. It's just like, oh, well, maybe try it. Maybe it'll help.
Yeah, I heard
and that
it
could
works.
be scary. Yeah. I know someone who tried it. They did great.
Yeah.
So that could be scary. They kind of want more information. Like, show me the research. And that's kind of what we do in the class. Like, here's what it says.
Yeah.
The FDA says it doesn't do anything. Says there's no health benefits whatsoever. But here's what research shows us.
Where you're pulling the research? Because I know in the U.S., I mean, we have there's such a dearth of actual data around use. I know some of the other countries have been doing some more research over the last decade or so. But where do you tend to go to find good reliable research on the effects of cannabis?
Yeah, well, you need academic journals, and that's what I go to. So it's the research all around the world. Like Israel and Canada have been great. We've got a lot of. It's going to be a while before we have any quality U.S. research coming out, but. Hopefully soon. But at least thank goodness for these other countries because we do have a lot of really amazing stuff coming out. So it's pretty remarkable and awesome to finally have that concrete data that, people can dive into.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, us analytic types love to see the numbers. Is there anyone that you found in your kind of teaching and people you've come across that are not necessarily good candidates for cannabis use for one reason or another?
So, that's a really tough question. Good question.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, there are people who are definitely more at risk for issues. So one of the issues we look at with cannabis, and one of the things we have to consider is that there is a very small potential for drug interactions. So just like just like with grapefruit juice, it can cause, an elevation in the blood of a specific medication, and it can cause the body to not really absorb it.
Yeah.
Cannabis can behave the same way because of the way it is metabolized by the liver. And it tends to be genetic, and most of the it doesn't affect most medications, but there are some. Yeah. So I always, encourage patients who are using like specific antidepressants to utilize caution. Certain antibiotics you would want to use caution, but those for example, Levaquin, but they tend to, like when patients are on Levaquin, it tends to be a lower oral dose, and you can tend to go up, you're able to go up higher. So, but it's something to definitely be aware of, because the patients are potentially, if their blood has an elevation of a specific medication, they're at a higher risk of experiencing side effects from that medication. So it's just something to definitely be aware of. Some people, consider genetic testing because that can kind of shed a little bit more light on how they might respond. But for most people, they never experience a problem.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about cannabis is that it is the side effects, overdose sides are so low compared to so many other things that
there's no overdosing in cannabis. Yes, it's not even as deadly as caffeine. I mean, caffeine can kill you. Cannabis can.
And we always
too much water. You can die from drinking too much water.
Yeah,
it's amazing. You can't die from too much cannabis yet. I personally believe that we are, making it more and more concentrated, and eventually we're going to concentrate the right cannabinoid and it will prove fatal. But, I think we're a ways from doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's interesting how the science behind it has evolved so quickly, and sort of the industrial engineering side of it has increased so much. Yeah. So, in terms of where you're going with Marijuana Mommy, and what are some of your goals, kind of ambitions? Where do you want to take the content? Where do you want to take the business? What's your bigger picture in terms of the impact and growth that you want to see?
Good question. So I'm adding a lot more video to Marijuana Mommy because people tend to respond to that. Yeah. I'm trying to introduce more and more personal stories and more faces so people can see like everyday average people who are using cannabis, and have had amazing results. My goals for Marijuana Mommy is to convince a third of the population to try cannabis, because a third of the population at one point in their life try opiates. And I really passionately, strongly believe that cannabis should be a frontline medication, and before anybody is prescribed opiates, they should try cannabis. Yeah. So that's really what I hope to sway society to that point, and we will see.
Yeah, it's about 100 million people roughly or something. I like the goal. So let me ask one other one. If you had someone who is thinking about getting into the cannabis business or getting into the kind of the ecosystem, where do you see needs? Where do you see needs for entrepreneurs or people who want to start businesses, opportunities for them to, create, solve problems, address market needs? This industry is growing so quickly. I'm always curious about where the new kind of problems are showing up and where there's new opportunities for good businesses. Do you see anything right now in terms of?
Good question. There's so much. There's so many opportunity, and basically anything can kind of translate into specializing in the cannabis industry. Yeah. So people don't have to start out with, opening a dispensary or even like starting a retail shop. Like nobody has to do that. Like people who are accountants can just kind of start segueing into specializing in cannabis. People who own cleaning companies can segue into specializing in cleaning dispensaries or cleaning cultivation facilities. So there's so much room right now in the space that anybody can really specialize and kind of segue into it.
I think that's smart. I think that's, kind of taking what you do exceptionally well in the rest of the world and figure out how to apply it. Because the fact is, cannabis needs everything. It needs banking. It needs training. It needs cleaning service. It needs, marketing, branding. There's all these different areas of cannabis that needs to happen.
And now's really the time for people to do it. Like I hear so many people saying like, oh, should I get involved? Yes. And you should do it now because now is like, it's ready to explode. Like be one of the first. Yeah. Don't wait until it's overcrowded.
Yeah. And any, I know you're based in New Jersey, any kind of prognostications or sense of what's happening on in terms of the market here? I know we're all waiting for various things.
New Jersey. I have a great deal of fear that New York is going to pass us and legalize first. Yeah. New Jersey, we were hoping by December 17th that we would have a vote on the bill, but nothing happened. I don't see it really being voted and legalized recreational cannabis for until the spring or summer. And then I even think after we get the votes, it's going to be a long time before we actually see recreational dispensaries. Our medical marijuana program is very, very restricted and very, very difficult here. We haven't even gotten that expansion in place. So I don't know. Our governor is very pro. Our new administration is very, very pro, but not all of the legislators are on board. So we'll see. We can only pray.
Yeah, exactly.
It's painful.
Yeah. And it's part of the process. One of the things I've seen the more kind of successful cannabis entrepreneurs, I think, have kind of navigated this drama fairly well. Not getting too bent out of shape about
it's all about the waiting.
Yeah, it is. Well, and keeping yourself prepared and not overly, not to get too far ahead of your skis, but
that's true.
You have
a lot of people do that.
Yeah, you have to time it. But hopefully all that will come. And if New York, I think New York is going to have some pressure on Jersey. And I think that once one side goes, it's going to push.
I think so too. The other one's going to be right behind it.
Yeah. And there's lots of other states too. I know that we've got
Oklahoma. But we're going to be huge. We're going to be like a 9, I forget. We have like 9 million people, I think.
Yeah. It's significant.
It's going to be a huge, huge major market.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exciting. All the more reason to get involved.
It is. Very exciting.
This has
been great.
Everybody
should come to Jersey.
Yeah, well, I will. I come out on a regular basis. So excellent. So if people want to find out more about you, about Marijuana Mommy, what's the best way to get more information?
Go to marijuanamommy.com.
Awesome. And I'll make sure the link is in the show notes here so people can click through.
Awesome. And I have a newsletter people can sign up for, and then I keep posted on all my classes and everything else.
Perfect.
Great.
I'm always looking for good sources of content for folks. People are pretty hungry for information in this industry.
Yes, they are. It's needed.
I appreciate it. Good. Jessie, this has been a pleasure. I thank you so much for the time. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for having me on.
You've been listening to Thinking Outside the Bud with business coach Bruce Eckfeldt. To find a full list of podcast episodes, download the tools and worksheets, and access other great content, visit the website at thinkingoutsidethebud.com. And don't forget to sign up for the free newsletter at thinkingoutsidethebud.com/newsletter.